And also, Mark, it's good to have you. I hope you heard the Chumash shir. You heard your dedication? Yeah?
I did, Rabbi. Thank you. I think I'm back for good now. I think we're.
Really?
Yeah, I think we should be okay.
Wow, that's
I'm just going to make adjustments. I need to change some things around.
That's a major commitment. It was an important shir, by the way. I said a vote on tzedakah in that shir that was a real game changer. That money that comes from tzedakah leads to satisfaction. That's a real big. I said today, I spoke here in the shul. I give a shir in the afternoon, and I said that I'm making appeals for over 40 years, and this Chassam Sofer is such an important Chassam Sofer. Again, if you didn't listen to the Re'eh Gems, you should listen to the Re'eh Gems. Mark, did you hear yet the Q&A or not yet? Not yet. Marshall, did you hear it?
Rebbe, the Q&A was fantastic. Thank you very much.
Oh, you like the Q&A? Yeah. Everybody should take a listen to that Q&A. It's a good thing to do with your wife. It's an interesting Q&A. Okay. Let's welcome in everybody. Let's welcome Levi Vega, Berish Gesselman, Yaakov Warman, Saba, Irving Fishbaum, Mark Frankel, Mo Kushner, Michael Akta, Dr. Guy, Yitzi Fuchs, Dr. Block, Mark Schafel, Marshall Castle, Ruvain Shanet, A.B. Spry, Rebellia Yaffe, Eddie Chazan, Bruce Eisenberg, Michael Avram Chavin, Gedalia Engels, Stephen Holtzman, Nachman Chapler, Rabbi Kaniel, Richard Rosenzweig, Danny Vogel, Ilya Schuttman, Shelley Zeitlin, Moshe Lehman, Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg, David Helfgott, and Iran. It's wonderful to have all of you. As we have 32 Zoomers here right now, let's mute everybody because people don't seem to know how to mute themselves. Okay, very good. We are holding on the bottom line of Daf Tzadik Tes Amud Beis. Now, when you see a small Amud, you have to be very suspicious. When there's a small Amud, it's not small because it's easy. So anyway, Gid Anosha Shin is Bashel. So we said that if Mark takes the Gid Hanasha and cooks it up with a whole bunch of other Gidin, so if he could recognize which one is the Gid Hanasha, he pulls it out, and the rest is Batal B'Shishim. But if he doesn't know which one is the Gid Hanasha, then they're all Aser. So the Gemara, and the same thing is true with a chaticha of nevela, and the same thing is true with a chaticha of a dog tameh, like a slice of non-kosher fish. Says the Gemara, why, if he can't recognize which one, does it all become aser? V'lifta beruba, let it be batel in the majority of the permitted sinews. Says the Gemara, Beri Yashani. A creation is different. This is considered significant. It's a Gid Anosha. It's considered a barrier. And you can't neutralize a barrier. Says the Gemara, but okay, that might refer to the Gid Anosha, but what about a slice of nevela? A slice of nevela isn't a barrier. Chen chaticha shel nevela, and also a chaticha shel dog tameh. So the Gemara says, v'tiftal beruba. Now, we know that there is an opinion that anything that's sold sometimes by unit can't be neutralized. So slices of meat are sometimes sold by unit. You'll go into a takeout store and they'll ask you, how many pieces of roast beef do you want? So the Gemara says, v'tiftal beruba, that anything that's occasionally sold by unit can't be neutralized. That's why it can't be neutralized by right. Only if it's always sown by unit. And this is only very specific things, 6 things. The Rimoine Badon, the pomegranates of Badon, Egoize Perech, the nuts of Perech, only very, very specific things, then why can't you neutralize the chaticha of nevela or the chaticha of the dog tameh? Says the Gemara, shani chaticha, a piece of meat is different because it's fit to serve up to guests. Right? It's something that you will feel satisfied. It's prestigious enough to serve it to guests. And therefore it can't be neutralized. And the Gemara says, Vitzricha, we need the chiddush that you can't be mevatel to get anasha, and we need the chiddush that you can't be mevatel the chaticha shel neveil. The ashmina gid, that's mishum de beryeh, because it's its own creation. Aval chaticha, just a piece of meat, emalai. The ashmina chaticha, that's because since you could put it before guests. Aval gid emalai, but the gid anasha, which is not something you would serve to the guests, I might think that you could neutralize it b'ray, tzricha. Now, we go into a new territory. And we're going to learn about what is referred to as chanan. Chanan stands for chaticha nasis nevela. So that we will see that if a piece of meat of Isser gets mixed up with a piece of meat that's not Isser, we don't say that if you remove the piece of meat of Isser, then you only have to mevatel what was absorbed by that piece of meat, the second piece of meat. But rather we say that the whole piece becomes forbidden. It becomes like it's an avela, and you would have to be mevatel the whole piece, not just the absorption that it absorbed. Well, let's see this inside. And we learn to be mekayim the mitzvah v'dibarta bam. With so many wonderful people here on Motzei Shabbos. Dorish Rabba Barbachana. Chaticha shel neveyev l'v'shel dog tameh. The piece of meat of the neveil and the piece of meat of dog tameh. Eina iseres, it doesn't aser. Achetitein tam, until it imparts flavor. Bereitiv ubekipa ubechatiches. In the soup, in the sediment, and in the pieces of meat. However, uke rav amura aleh, remember, their voice couldn't travel far, so they used to have a professional broadcaster. It was called an amora, who broadcasted it with a radiophonic voice, and sometimes if it was a large crowd, there were several broadcasters. Uke Rav Amora Olei V'Doresh Kevan Shenosan Tam B'Chaticha. Once the forbidden piece gave a taste to another piece of meat, Chaticha Atzma Nasa Nevela, the Chaticha itself becomes an Nevela, V'Iseres Kol HaChatichas Kulan, and it asks all the rest of the pieces, Mipnei shein mina, because it's its type. So the Gemara says, oh, so you mean we're going according to Rabbi Yehuda that min b'mina loy batel? Amalei Rav Safar l'bayim michtev Rav kaman amru l'shmaitza k'Rabbi Yehuda da'ama min b'mina loy batel. So then why do you need that it should put flavor in the second piece of meat? the original Isser is there, and Mim B'minay Labatal, my area Kinos and Tam, Afilu Kiloi Nas and Tam Nami, even if it doesn't make the whole second piece Aser, but the original piece of meat of Nevela is there, and it can never be, its taste can never be neutralized. Amalei, so he answers, where you quickly remove the original piece of meat. So then the Gemara, the Ran asks, so then why do you need the reason of Chaticha Nas Nevela? The second piece of meat has a little bit of Isser in it, and that little bit of Isser cannot be neutralized. Why does the whole thing have to become Aser? So the Ran explains that the only time we say Min B'minay Lo Batal is only when it's the original thing. Because where do we learn out Min B'minay Lo Batal from? From the blood of the par and the blood of the soyer that get mixed up together on Yom Kippur, and even though the blood of the par is more than the blood of the soyer retains its identity, because Min B'minay Lo Batal. But that's only the original blood, the blood of the par. Not just a taste of it. So if we would remove the first one, and we don't say that the second one becomes all Aser like the first one, we wouldn't say Min B'minay Lo Batal just for the taste of the second one, because for the taste we don't say Min B'minay Lo Batal. But since we say Chaticha Nas Nevela, so the second one becomes like the first one, it becomes all Aser. And there we would say Min B'minay Lo Batal. Rava says a different shot. Rava says you don't have to remove the original one. Even if you didn't remove the original one. But what happens is that since there's not only pieces of meat in the pot, there's also other ingredients. There's soup, there's spices, so that's min with minay v'she'ena minay. Filotema loy kidam esilkoi, have a min uminay v'davar achar. Because min uminay v'davar achar, whenever it's mixed with its own type and other types, silik es minay kamay she'enay, we remove the one that's of its type, v'she'enay minay rabba alav, and the one that's not its type increases umavatlay and would neutralize it. However, over here, since we say the second piece absorbed from the first piece and becomes like it, there's not enough in the pot to neutralize two pieces of meat. So therefore, that's the nafkamina to say Chaticha Nas Nevela. Now, this is something that Marshall really wants to know. Is the gid anosha of a horse aser? You know, because Marshall knew Mr. Ed, and he wants to know about the gid anosha of a horse. Is the gid anosha of a horse aser? So the Mishnah tells us the opinion of the Chachamim. Noyeg b'tahira, the Isser gid anosha is only by a kosher animal, by a cow. Oh my goodness. Marshall just told me his middle name is Wilbur. Now, Noyeg b'tahira, it's only practiced by a kosher animal, but it's not by a camel, a donkey, a horse. Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Yehuda says there's an Issa Gid Anasha also by a Talmidic horse. And Rabbi Yehuda says a very good raya. Because when was the Issa Gid Anasha? It was given to Yaakov. This was before Har Sinai. There was no such thing as a Talmidic animal or a kosher animal. So it was given to all animals. Rabbi Yehuda v'aloi mibnei Yaakov ne'Issa Gid Anasha. It became also before Har Sinai. V'adayim behemoth tameya muteres lahen, and they were allowed to have a behemoth tameya. So therefore, the issa was given both to cows and horses. The Chacham say no. The issa starts at Har Sinai. The Torah just records the reason why the issa was given was because of what the Malach did to Yaakov. Amr lei b'Sinai nemar, it was only given at Sinai. Was only given to Tordic animals. Ela shenichta b'mekaymai, to tell us why is the Gid Anasha aser, because the Malach wrestled with Yaakov and injured him by the Gid Anasha. So it comes out that according to Rabbi Yehuda, there's an Issa Gid Anasha on a horse. So that means that if Marshall eats the Gid Anasha of a horse, he gets whacked twice. He gets 2 malchus. Why? 1 for eating a horse, for eating a Talmidic animal, and 1 for eating the Gid Anasha. So that means that Rabbi Yehuda holds Isser Chalal Isser. Now the Gemara is mystified by this. V'savar Rabbi Yehuda Isser Chalal Isser? Does Rabbi Yehuda hold Isser Chalal Isser? V'tani Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, Yachol tei niblos eif tamei b'tamei begadim b'beis abliya. I might think the nevela of a ostrich, the nevela of a pelican, should be metame if you swallow a kazayas. Says Gemara, no, there's no isser of nevela by a Talmidic bird. Tamalem nevela treifa lo yoichel l'tamava. Nevela and treifa you shouldn't eat l'tamava. Where is there an isser? Where is there tama? When the isser is nevela, not when the isser is pelican meat. Misha isser mishum bal teichel nevela. Yotze zeh she'eni isser mishum bal teichel nevela. Pelican and ostrich is not because it's nevela. Ela mishum bal teichel tamei. You can't have a Talmidic bird. So you see, Rabbi Yehuda holds that the isser of nevela is not chal on the isser of ostrich. Says maybe Rabbi Yehuda holds that by a gid doesn't have any taste. So there's no isser of eating horse meat. Because the only time there's an isser to eat horse meat is if it's an achila, if it has taste. Even by a horse, isser gid ika is only an isser of gid anasha. It's a tumaleka because it doesn't have taste. Says the Gemara, that can't be. V'sav Rabbi Yehuda ain't begidin b'naisin tam. Does Rabbi Yehuda hold that gidin don't have taste? V'atanya Rabbi Yehuda nu marshal. Ha'oichel gid anasha shel behemoth tameya. If Marshall eats a gid anasha of a horse, Rabbi Yehuda mechayiv shtayim. Rabbi Yehuda says whack him twice. So obviously Rabbi Yehuda holds yesh begin b'nais and tam, otherwise he wouldn't get malchus for eating horse. It's only if it's a achila. Reb Shimon Poiter. Reb Shimon holds his potter and ganzen. We'll see why Reb Shimon holds that. Says the Gemara, you're right. Lo'ilam kasavar yesh begin b'nais and tam. But here the reason why Rabbi Yehuda holds, normally Rabbi Yehuda holds ein issa chalal issa. But if they're simultaneous, then they're both chal. Because Savar Noig B'Shlil, he holds that the Isser Gid Anasha is already by a fetus. So the Isser of eating a horse and an Isser of the sinew of the thigh bone is chal simultaneous. The Isser Gid v'Isser Tumah b'Hadei Adodikas. Says Gemara, but that's not true. Rabbi Yehuda says it's not noig by a shlil. Umi matzis hamer noig b'shlim v'tanan Noig b'shlil, Reb Meir holds that remember he says that a ben pekua that comes out needs its own shchita, so it's not part of the mother, so its gid anosha is aser, and its chaylev is aser. Reb Yehuda Aimer ain't a noig b'shlil. It's not noig by a fetus, b'chel by mutter. So then, adrabah, the Isser Tumah comes first. The Isser Gid only comes when it comes out. Says the Gemara, Hani mili gabe tahira. Where does he say that the Gid is permitted in a fetus? That's by a tardik animal. The Rahman Amar kol b'behema teichelu. Whatever's in the animal you could eat. Aval b'tmei anayik. But a horse, where it doesn't say kol b'behema teichelu, the gid anasha is already aser in the fetus. So the isser of horse and the isser of fetus is simultaneous. Says the Gemara, it's still not simultaneous. The animal is forbidden before the sinews form. Do they come together? Vatanan. Now this is another thing that Eddie Chazan does. If you ever look, you see he looks like a shlump. It's not because he's a shlump, he's a nazir. Now a nazir can't become tameh. If he becomes tameh, he has to shave his hair, he loses his count, he has to bring karbanas. Al elu tumas hanazir migalech. The following tumas, Eddie, if he becomes tameh, would have to shave his hair and start his naziris again. He would wait 7 days and become tar. He would have to shave and start again. Al mace, if he comes in contact with a corpse, val kazayas min mace, or a kazayas of a corpse. Now, that sounds pretty redundant. If he's already has to shave for a kazayas of a corpse, he surely has to shave for a corpse. V'kashal on al kazayas min mace megaleach, al mace kulei on a whole corpse like kol shechem. Says the Gemara, there could be a corpse that's less than a kazayas. It's talking about if it's a miscarriage who's not yet been formed by sinews, so that means that there's no tumas aver. There, if it's less than a kazayas, it's metameh. So you see the meat forms before the sinews. So you can't say the isser of horse meat and the isser of gid anosha is simultaneous. Because you see the meat comes before the sinews. Alma isser tumah kadim. Now if the isser tumah comes first, so then we should say on the isser gid, ein isser chalal isser. So why does Rabbi Yehuda say that we whack Marshall twice if he eats the gid anosha of a horse? So here the Gemara now tells us that the isser of gid anosha is an isser chomer. And since it's an isser chomer, it's chal even on the isser of eating horse, eating behemoth tamei. Afal gav the isser tumah kadim, osi isser gid chayil olay. The isser of gid anasha is chal on the isser of eating a horse. Why? Shekeni suray noig b'bnei noya. Rashi says, because gid anasha is an isser chamer, because it's even noig ben noyach. A ben noyach could eat a horse, but he can't eat gid anasha. Because this is Rabbi Yehuda L'Shitasa, who says that gid anasha was given before Sinai to Bnei Yaakov. Dekanami diktani am Rabbi Yehuda v'aloy Bnei Yaakov nesa gid anasha. It was given to the Bnei Yaakov v'adayim behemoth tamei moteres lahem. The isser of horse meat is still mutter. So therefore it's an isser chamer, and since it's an isser chamer, it's chal. You're right. We learned out from the case of the bird that normally Yehuda doesn't hold of Isser Chalal Isser. But over here, he taka holds that if Marshall eats the gid anosha of a horse, he's chayiv shtayim, he gets whacked twice. Even though the Isser Tumah is chal before the gid formed, so you can't say it was chal simultaneous, but the Isser gid is chal on the Isser Tumah because it's an Isser Chomer, because it's noig even beben noyach. Wow. Another 2 blot in the books. We're on the countdown to brachas. If I'm right, it's like a 308 or 307 blot to brachas. Got to get ready your brachas gemaras already.
Take off the dust.
Yeah, got to wipe them off from the Romanian stains.
That's for sure.
Okay, so now we're going to learn the Mishnah. Now we're going to learn the Mishnah Yomis, Rabbi. So we're going to start the 24th parak of Masechtas Kalim. I mean, that's just, that's stratospheric territory. 24th parak. Again, I want to remind everybody that if you didn't listen to Re'eh Gems and the Re'eh for the Shabbos table, and also it's a nice thing to do it together with your wife, to listen to the hour and 10-minute Q&A that I did last week for the Irgun Shirei Torah. It is on YouTube. It is on TorahAnytime.com. Look at Jewish Understanding. And it is on Kol HaLashon. Let's just now set up for the Mishnah Yomis.